and welcome here to TalkFCB, and welcome back to the channel here today, guys, where we have to talk about what was a spectacular performance on Sunday against Valencia. We scored 6 goals, there was 0 in reply, and there were some absolutely fantastic displays out there for us, and you've got to say, everybody has been stepping up, everybody has been doing their bit and really providing quality in the lineup and off the bench. Today we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be running through the team, what we saw, the response that we saw, and we will also have an important update today on Lamine Yamal and his injury situation too, as we start to look ahead to the Champions League coming this week. It is all on the way, guys. I am sure that you have a big smile on your face, so come on and let's do this. Because make no mistake about it, guys, coming into the Valencia game here for Barca and for Hansi Flick, I think there were a number of really pressing issues, really pressing questions that we had of the team. And I think the first one was always going to be, are we going to see a response? We all know what happened against Raya. It wasn't a good display. It wasn't a good way to enter the international break. And then Flick's words after that game about egos, about a lack of togetherness there, about, again, a lack of intensity. He called out his players. That's exactly what he did. He demanded more from them. And the big question was always going to be, will they respond to that? Are they still buying in to what Flick wants to bring to this team? Can we go back to what we were doing last season? And the really good thing is, we definitely saw a response. And it wasn't just about one player, it wasn't just about one display here that sort of rescued the game for us. This was a collective performance. It was a result here that everybody got together, everybody worked hard together as a team to produce and to perform. And what's important is that Flick more than acknowledged that. He said right here, I'm so happy with the performance. He said, I think we showed what we wanted to do from the very start of the game. The intensity was very high. We were all focused. We played as a team. We played all together and we played for each other. He said, this is exactly what we wanted to see today. And we did very well. So Flick there, he's saying this is what I wanted, this is what I was asking for, and you have delivered. And again, it's not only about those players that started in today's game, it's not only about the people that Flick put his trust in from the get-go, from the word go here to start this game, but also think about the players that came off the bench. Think about the way the game changed and continued to evolve in the second half there. And I thought it was very important to hear Flick say after the game, he valued what he saw. He said here, yeah, the starting 11, they were fantastic, but also don't forget the players who came off the bench. They came on, they raised their level as well. And he said there, I really value what I have seen today. This is a start after the international break. And Flick basically there, I think he's understanding his squad now. He's understanding the players that he has at his disposal, the quality that's there, the depth that is there, and this is what we needed to see from Barca this season, because we know about the games. We're about to enter here a very demanding run of games whereby every few days you're called into action, the intensity's got to be there, we're going to need to rotate, we're going to need to call upon different players. And think about it right here coming up against Valencia off the back of that international break. In this game, there was no Balde, there was no Frankie, there was no Gavi, there was no Lamine Yamal. Already here talking about not just good players, these are top world-class talents. And then you add to that as well, you've got Ronald Araujo, you've got Raphinha, both of those returning from very long journeys. Neither of those players started either. So you've arguably got there 6 massive players that are missing out of your team. And I think to see Barca lacking all of those players, having those injuries, having those troubles, and coming through a game, scoring 6 against Valencia, that is a massive sign for this season. That is a huge show of strength in our depth. And that is promising. And I think if we do start to look into some specifics right here, guys, one thing I think is really interesting early on in the season here, Hansi Flick is really trying to include Eric Garcia, and in a number of different roles as well, whether it's at right back, whether it's, as we saw him yesterday, at centre back once again. He has now started every single league game of this season. He wants him to be involved, he wants him there as part of his defensive line, and it's a player that he is really putting faith in right now. And of course his partner at the back, Pau Kubasi. I mean, what can you say about this young man? He is just absolutely amazing in terms there of a centre-back, with the vision that he has, with the ability to just pull off these passes. You look at the way that he just starts the move for that first goal. I mean, he is in a league of his own in that department. Absolutely incredible. You can always guarantee Pau is going to step up. You know, whether he's on the right or the left, he is still shown here. He can impact the game. He can play out. He can certainly be involved from the base of our defence. And can we talk as well about Marc Bernal? I mean, this is a player who, again, throughout the summer, we were all screaming at Barca, don't sell him. Do not let him go. We will need a player like Marc Bernal. You need him in your squad. He is such a quality player. And you look at his performance yesterday. He was fantastic in midfield. He really, really was. And he's got this in his locker. We saw exactly the same kinds of performances at the start of last season. He was impressing in La Liga. He was phenomenal in the Champions League when we beat Bayern. And I think he's a player here who can certainly keep growing in this team. I'm so glad that we kept hold of him. And it is only early in the campaign, but we're already seeing why we had to keep hold of these guys. We had to keep our squad together because these are players who add so much quality. And speaking there about adding quality, especially in those midfield areas, I mean, wasn't it amazing to see Marc Bernal back out there in a Barcelona shirt again? And I've got to say, even though we were only in front of, 6,000 fans inside the stadium yesterday, what an ovation they gave him there. Pedri was coming off. He got an incredible one as well. But the reaction of the fans to see Marc Bernal back, it's a sign of his talent. It's a sign of the way we all view him here as a player who can make the difference. You know, he really, really can. If he performs at his best, if he gets back to the kind of level that he was showing before he got injured, which I'm sure that he will, I mean, he could be in our midfield. He could be a player here who has a massive impact on this team this season. And it only took him minutes, to understand the rhythm of the game. This is somebody who, like I say, he's been out for a year. He has been missing match action for over a year. He just comes back like it's nothing. He's involved in the game. He makes a stunning pass there into Robert Lewandowski, gets himself an assist within minutes of returning. That is the quality of this young man. That is the talent that he has. And I cannot wait to see more of him. We are going to be patient. We are going to introduce him slowly here. He's going to get minutes. He's going to be introduced very gradually back into the team. But when he is back and when he's truly able to start games again, which I believe that he will, he can contend already for starting places in this team. It's going to be phenomenal. And then, of course, you have to talk about Fermin. Of course, you have to talk about Fermin Lopez. Because much in the same way that, with Casado, he was linked away from the club. Maybe the club were listening to offers. Maybe they were just seeing what was out there. But as we all just kept shouting, he's not for sale. You cannot let him go. He's too good. He's just way, way too good to let him walk out the door. And like I said in yesterday's review, Chelsea making a 40 million bid for Fermin, that is embarrassing. That is some kind of joke. Because this guy, he is absolutely fantastic. And how I would describe the performances here of Fermin and what he's able to do in the final third, he's a chaotic player. And I mean that in the best possible way. Because what he does, he causes chaos. You don't know what he's going to do because he's able to make excellent runs. He's able to finish chances off inside the box. He's able there to make his way in there undetected. But he's also able to do what you see there with the goal that he scores. He takes it to the edge of the box and then just smashes it. And he does this all the time. This is not a one-off from Fermin. He has that kind of ability in his locker. He has a knack of scoring goals. And from a midfield player, that is unique. That is very, very special to have somebody like that who can create goals, who can score goals, who can regularly chip in and help the forwards. That is going to be massive for us this season. If he can continue this kind of trajectory, if he can continue this kind of goal scoring, that is massive. That will help the team. It will help everybody around him. And it is such a good thing that we still have him at our club. And of course, it wasn't only him that did get 2 goals on the night. And you've got to look at Raphinha. He came off the bench. Flick said after the game, it wasn't really because he arrived late. It was because he had that long journey back with Brazil, which I admit is very, very possible. It could be any sort of situation. But whatever happened, he came on. And the attitude is faultless from Raphinha. He comes on, he gives the absolute absolute maximum. And I've got to say, that second goal from him, that gives me a lot of hope and excitement for the season, because the way that he takes that second goal on, that's what we saw from him last season. That kind of snapshot, he's inside the box just about. Again, it's smashed into the back of the net, without a second thought. And that's the kind of finish I want to see again from Raphinha, because last season, you think about the game against Bayern, the kind of goals that he was scoring when he scored a hat-trick, he was scoring from everywhere. Every shot, it was a goal. It was absolutely incredible to see him playing with such confidence and belief in himself. And I want to see that continue here into this season. He had a great cameo yesterday, came on, 2 goals for him, adding to the confidence again. Let's get him going, because coming up is the Champions League. And yeah, Raphinha last season in the UCL, he was unplayable. And what about Roony Bardghji? I thought it was interesting. I thought it was very, very interesting to see him in the starting lineup. And again, it's a sign, really, that Flick is just willing to do these things. He is not somebody, he's not a coach here who's going to sit on the sidelines and just sort of be a little bit scared to make these big calls. If he feels someone is ready, if he feels though it's the right decision for the game, he will just do it. And to put Roony in there, and I thought he did well. I thought, bearing in mind here, it's a 19-year-old player. He's had a lot of registration issues. He's had to wait for his debut. He's had a lot of uncertainty so far in his Barca career. And to effectively, against Valencia, just be thrown into that starting lineup, I thought he handled all of that. He handled the occasion very, very well. And of course, right now, he's playing it a little bit safe, I would say. There's so much more that he can do. He's got so much more talent than we saw from him just yesterday. But he will grow. He will develop. He will get more confidence as he starts to play more and more minutes with his team. And I thought it was a good base, a good start to see Roony Bardghji. And we are going to see much, much more of him. But what about Marcus Rashford, guys? I thought it was a big game for him. I thought, given what had happened over the course of the international break, we had all those rumours about his future. Are Barca going to cancel, end his loan early? Of course they're not. That was absolutely ridiculous. He was also criticised, of course he was, whilst away on international duty there playing for England. But how well did he do yesterday? Again, he was another player who had a big chance, a big opportunity in the starting lineup in a big game like this. And I thought he really did a lot of good things in this game. The way that he was very direct. He was running with the ball. He was working his defender. He was making different kinds of runs as well. He was trying to be decisive in that final third. I think the ball that he plays for the assist that he got, fantastic in-swinging cross there from Marcus Rashford. Not only that as well, you're not only looking for what he can do in the final third, you're also looking for him to be active, to work hard, to be running, to be pressing. And I thought he did all of those things very, very well as well. It was a much, much more encouraging display, in my opinion. This is what Flick will be looking for. This is exactly why he was brought into the club. No Yamal, no Raphinha in the starting lineup. We need other players to step up. That's why we were so intent on bringing Rashford in on loan, adding that quality. Flick is trying to get the best out of him here, trying to demand more and more from him. And there is still more in there from Rashford. Make no mistake about that. He can still go up several levels from here, but this was a lot more promising, in my opinion. And certainly, guys, thinking there about the attacking areas, can we talk about Robert Lewandowski? Now, of course, we are all no strangers to what Lewandowski can do in front of goal. We all know by now this man is a goal machine. But I was still very impressed to see him, come on for just 24 minutes of the game. And he looked very, very sharp. He looked like a player here who wants his place back. He's a little bit disappointed, I'd imagine. He's a little bit frustrated, maybe, that he's not in the starting lineup. But ultimately, that's exactly what Hansi Flick will want. If he's leaving Lewandowski out, just like with every other player, you're looking for a reaction. You're looking for him here to step up and show, okay, why should you be back in there? And he came on, both of the goals, fantastic finishes, in my opinion. The movement with Lewandowski is going to be good. He keeps himself on side very, very well. The first finish, just bang, straight in the top corner. No questions asked at all. He didn't even think about that one. And the second one there, slotted through by Marc Bernal, and he just chips it over the goalkeeper. 2 really, really impressive finishes. And that brings us on here to what I feel is an emerging question now at Barca. What should be happening in that number 9 role? Because we look at Ferran Torres, I think he's had a very, very solid start to the season. And this is somebody who has a lot of different qualities. He can do things that Lewandowski cannot do. He's got great movement there. He can help in the build-up. He can drop in. And you saw it with the opening goal yesterday. Ferran was very, very key in that. But at the same time, we also know with Ferran, there can be a tendency to miss big chances. Big chances can appear, and he gets a lot of them because he gets into such smart positions, but he doesn't always finish them off. And that just leaves the door open, really, to Lewandowski. You've got somebody here who's a proven goal scorer. He comes on yesterday, 23 minutes, 2 goals already. And that's a big statement there, because at the end of the day, you want to create chances, you want players in this team who can make the difference. And in the end of it all, if Lewandowski just, hangs around the penalty area and scores 2 goals a game, that is essentially what we're looking for from our number 9. But it depends on the situation. And I'm just looking now at the Newcastle game, what is going to be quite a physical encounter, I would imagine there. It's going to be a high-pressure game, high intensity. It's going to be played in front of a very, very passionate crowd there as well in Newcastle. What would you do in terms of the starting number 9? Do you feel as though we need the qualities of Ferran Torres more in that game? Or do you think it's time to reinstate Robert Lewandowski into the starting lineup just in time here for the UEFA Champions League? That is a competition that he absolutely loves and thrives in. But I'll be very interested to know your thoughts on that. Ferran or Lewandowski, which way are you looking right here ahead of Newcastle? But of course, guys, in yesterday's game, it was fantastic to see so many players out there, so many players contributing and playing very, very well indeed. But it was still, of course, very, very sad that Lamine Yamal could not be part of that. And let's just go back here to what has happened with him, because we've heard more and more information about what went on in the international break when he was away with Spain. Now, what we know for sure is that he definitely encountered pain. Whilst on international duty with Spain, there were several moments there after their first game, especially against Bulgaria. He was suffering, he was unable to train, and as a result of that then, we believe he was given painkillers in order to play in their second game against Turkey. Now, what also has to be stated here is that at no time were Barca contacted by the Spanish Federation. Apparently, Barca were not made aware of Yamal suffering discomfort. They were not made aware of the fact that Spain were proposing to use painkillers to include him in their next match. And like I say, there was no communication. That is why Hansi Flick was so frustrated. That is why Barca have called upon this to all change in future. Because we've got to be informed. We should have been kept up to date with everything that is happening with all of our players whilst they are away. And people have asked the question of, okay, could Lamine himself have done a bit more? Could he have been speaking with Barcelona? Could he have actually said to Spain, look, I'm not sure I should play. I'm not sure that I feel ready to play. And what I would say with that is, I think a more experienced player, they would have done. They would have spoken up maybe. They would have maybe taken themselves out of that situation and wouldn't have played then in that second match. But at the end of the day, we're talking here. You can't forget that with Lamine. He's 18 years old. And he's also a player right now that wants to play. Of course he does. He wants to play every single minute of every game. But that is essentially why everybody above him, they've got to protect him. Because, yeah, you've got a player here who's always raring to go. He's not going to pull himself out of the game. He's not going to take himself out of that situation. So you, as the coach, you've got to be thinking for him. You've got to be looking out for his best interests. And that is why Spain, for me, completely failed in that department. And right now, we are hearing on Lamine Yamal, he's improving. The important thing and the good thing right now is it's not a massive injury problem. It's more about pain. It's more about managing the discomfort and giving him the right amount of time to recover. So we don't need stuff like painkillers so that he can play. So right now, we're just allowing his body to rest and recover. Now, as of right now, he's not fully recovered, and the feeling is that he might not quite be ready to make it against Newcastle. Now, it's a case here of Barca, maybe they could push him, they could force him to be involved in that game, they could cut a few corners, but at the same time here, it's important that we practice what we preach on this one. At the same time, we can't have a go at Spain, we can't criticise what they've done, and then rush Yamal back to play in a Champions League phase game. He's got to be ready. And I think the club right now, they're giving him every chance to just recover at his own pace. They're not pushing him, they're not rushing him, and if he has to miss the Newcastle game, then so be it here. It's important to have Yamal fully fit, fully available, and recovered for the whole season ahead. The season is long. There's so many big games coming up. There's going to be so many more important games, let's be honest. At the business end of the season, we want him to be right, and we cannot take any risks at all with him. But guys, just let me know how you're feeling right now. Unfortunately, we do have a few injuries. We have a few players here who are fighting to get back with us. But what did you make of that Valencia game? What did you make of the displays out there that we saw from so many players who stepped up in their absence. And do let me know as well how you are feeling ahead of the Champions League. What a contest it's going to be coming up against Newcastle on Thursday. I will see all of you soon for all of the build-up ahead of that massive game. Thank you indeed for the great support here. But until next time, as always, Vejka, El Barça.